between 68 and 96, and the city's longest serving council.
So we are standing.
In Maccaud Park, which was named in honor of Vin Maccaud, who in 1968 sold the 3.1 acres to the city of White Rock for $48,000 on the understanding that she had life occupancy in the home that occupied this site at the time.
Right where we're standing.
We're standing. Her home is where the cairn is. She and her husband built it in 1935 and added to it over the years, and she continued to live in it until her death in 1978. So she had 10 years of living after the city purchased the park.
All right, so we're standing in this park, and there's lots of houses around us. You know, it's kind of busy, not that far off, quite a busy spot. So tell me what this looked like in 1968.
Well, it was very rural. There was a few farms still on Fifth Avenue. None of these homes that are around here today were here, of course. She not only had this property, but she had many acres in this area. And it finally came down to the last 3.1 acres, which the city purchased. But this was a very rural setting, and her wish was to have a park that was for passive use, for people to walk, picnic, take their dogs, and enjoy the paths and trails that were later developed by the city through here. The only exception she made was to allow the White Rock Senior Center, Activity Center for seniors, which was fundraising at that time.
Tell me a little bit about Irene. What was she like?
She was a very eccentric character. Her father had been a missionary overseas and then later in Whatcom County in Washington. She was a very astute woman. Her second husband, Walter Nelson, was the president of Nelson Bottling Works, and Renee was the secretary treasurer of the group. She was a bit of a hermit in many ways. She had many antiques. Some of them, when she died, went to the city and to the museum. Others were later decommissioned because they didn't have a lot of value. But her house was full of all types of things, and let's just put it that way, she wasn't the most tidy housekeeper in the world.
So for you on council at the time, was this a very, did you do a lot of these kind of land deals? Were you meeting people a lot like that?
No, not at all. It was, I'd known Rini because I was the editor of the local paper at the time, and we struck up a friendship, and then when I got on council, she asked that we consider taking this property from her on the understanding that it remained a generally passive park.
Okay, now that is the crux of our conversation here.
I don't want them to kill the messenger because I'm just passing on what happened in 1968, and I'm certainly not against Pickle Ball Courts. I've been pickled myself a few times. So.
So what are you hearing from people you know? Obviously you know a lot of people in White Rock.
Well, I'm hearing quite a bit from the people who want to keep this as it is, especially the people around that live around here. You know, they don't want to see increased parking and a lot of noise and sports activity. So what I'm hearing is that they'd like to see the park remain it is. Now, there is the other faction, of course, who would like to see more sports activities, but that wasn't her wish, and I can only convey what the agreement I made with her one August night in 1968, along with the city administrator and city solicitor. We penned the deal there, and I suppose at the time we should have put in our wishes, but we didn't, and it was a handshake.
So what does it mean now? Like what can happen that you have this knowledge of this agreement and it wasn't written down? Where does that leave everything?
Well, it leaves everything in the hands of council, and I can't fault the current council because they wouldn't have known what happened in 1968. Even the local press had to do a lot of research to find the documents. And so I don't fault the council for that. You couldn't be expected to know what happened. Nor are current councils bound by decisions of past councils, of course. Times change, conditions change, everything changes, so it's understandable that they may want to see a different use for it.
White Rock, I grew up out here, closer to Ocean Park, and it has changed so much. What does this park mean to you with all of this change? I mean, you've seen so much.
Well, it means a major green space east of Johnson Road and one of the few large parks there are in the area, with the exception of the Al Hogue Park on Buena Vista, which is quite a bit south of here. There are no major green spaces. So I think it would be nice to see it remain that way, mainly because I know what I told Rini McCord Nelson at the time, and that was our understanding, and we've lived by it until this date.
So now, I'm not a person that necessarily believes in ghosts, but
Well, they have said that in the old house they used to have ghosts, and there were stories of smugglers and all kinds of tales, because this was part of the Semiahmoo Trail that went through here and on to the border. So there was a lot of stories. She never told me there were ghosts in the place, and I had no reason to believe there were, but imagination has run wild since 1935 when she first came here.
so we don't think maybe she's around here watching to see what would happen to this park?
I'm sure she is. If it's at all possible, she'll be watching, that's for sure, because she was that kind of a character, and one of White Rock's early characters. We don't have people like that anymore. The old-time characters, I think, have long gone, and the people who really stand out in the communities, we've become rather vanilla.
All right, stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. We'll see what comes of it all in the end, but hopefully her wishes will be honored. I'd like to see that.
That is former White Rock City Councillor Vin Coyne in conversation with On the Coast's own Lisa Christensen. Council is set to meet this Monday to discuss the issue further, and a petition to keep the park green is also set to go before Council.